Hey everybody, this is Khara CrossFit Brindle back with my two friends and amazing colleagues, Liliana and Alex. Hey, say hi, guys.
Hi.
Hey.
We're going to talk about something a little heavier, which we're always game to talk about all sorts of topics. But I was inspired to reach out to both Alex and Liliana around the big five fears of our careers. So some of you are like, "What the heck are you in the five?" But having some colleagues come out and reach out to us for support, this showed up. So I want to talk about it and the fact that we need to talk about it. So, are either of you willing to help me list off the top five, or you want me to do it?
Oh, I can do it, but I was like only five.
Well,
That's
I'm sure
that's a
there's more
joke.
than
I know.
five to your point, but the big five that really
Right,
like cripple
right.
us, either whether it's questioning our professionalism or questioning ourselves as people. I think these five show up for that reason. So,
So the ones
Liliana, if
that
you
we,
would.
yeah, the ones that we discussed is client violence,
Mhm.
client death, client suicide, subpoena, and grievance.
Mhm. So, client violence, client accidental death or sudden death, client suicide versus subpoena and grievance. These five show up in consultations that the three of us do with the community, but also have a significant impact on how we see ourselves, right? So, if we were to kind of unpack these things a little bit, I know that when I started in this career, I had three of the five almost happen. I actually had two of the five in my first 6 months in the field, which, as we've heard from our colleagues, can make us question if we want to be here. Like, this is painful, this
Correct.
hurts. Do I want to keep doing this? Are either of you willing to share how many of the five you've experienced at this point in your career?
I can say I've experienced five out of the five. And I want to share on that because, first of all, just to let everybody know, when you work with trauma, addiction, court mandated populations and people who have dual diagnosis or intergenerational trauma that are court involved, this is going to be something that you need to mentally prepare yourself with, especially not hoping for the best, but knowing that this can happen. And so a lot of the clients that I work with have intergenerational trauma, have normalized certain patterns of behavior, delinquency for youth, criminal behavior for adults, where the only way they know how to manage with certain emotions, certain trauma triggers is through violence, is through acting out. And so, and a lot of times in their patterns of acting out, in this case, getting high or using substances, they overdose on accident, or, they get themselves in a position where they're extremely violent to their spouses, or they get aggravated. They can be in group or in session and they don't want to deal with their trauma. They don't want to deal with their issues. And through the therapeutic intervention, we get there. And then they get super aggressive as part of their defense mechanism. It's not about you, it's about them feeling very uncomfortable and vulnerable. And then they become violent, verbally aggressive, physically aggressive. And you just have to be very mindful on how synergistically you're showing up and how to manage it as well. Because if you're going to be working with certain populations, you need to be very mindful that you do are good, you're going to confront and you're going to deal with situations like this.
Yeah.
So I want to normalize and be mindful of the population you're serving and what are some potential normal behaviors with these individuals or with this population that you need to be mindful of. This is where the networking and your colleagues come into play. Who are the people in your neighborhood, but who are the people in your soul tribe, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
who can I reach out to? I have my criminal justice trauma and addiction therapist that I reach out to, Riley, I have all of these individuals that I can speak to. It's like, hey, this is what's going on. Can we consult and have that space to be able to process and normalize it, because it will come up.
Right. And I appreciate you naming that, you kind of touched on the first one, which is client violence, which a lot of our colleagues new in the field have a fear around if they're working with
Yeah.
populations that feel more emotionally charged, for lack of a better way to put it. All three of us come from community mental health and
Yeah.
working with underserved populations that might be more likely.
Mhm.
And so I know this does come up in consultation where people are like, "Oh my gosh, have you been assaulted? What is that like? How did that impact you when it comes to like violation of personal space or whatnot?" So I appreciate you naming that and knowing that these other four are also significantly impactful to all of us. So Liliana, I want to invite you to share how many of the five you've experienced so far in your career.
I started checking right away. I was like, oh, two for sure. But like when we talk about client violence, I remember in agency work, right? Like I was working with couples and that came up. And from that moment on, it started being, where am I going to sit? What if I have to do this? And then when we, as a registered play therapist, when we're working with kiddos, when you're a play therapist, being subpoenaed, that's like part of. When you work with couples, that's part of. And because of that, getting grievance, it comes with the territory. Someone is not going to be happy.
No.
So what I love about our support system, or when we seek legal advice, is that we normalize it. Mm-hmm. We know that this will happen. And if it is, what is the plan? Right? Like how are we going to respond? And that's part of the support system that we're discussing. That being attuned, being aware, we are a container for our clients, and therefore a lot of times these things come up. Even when we were talking about, and I know the three of us talk about all of them, or talk to each other when things come up, if any of these things come up. Like we are very lucky to have each other. Mm-hmm. I will say that. And being able to talk about these things and then be proactive about these things as well. That doesn't take away that we will question. That is completely normal too. Mm-hmm. As therapists, we are really good about personalizing. What could I have done differently? Right. And then having that support system to help you spin out of this. And knowing that, that's just part of the work that we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that. So at this point in my career, I alluded to, I had almost three, beginning of my career. At this point, I have had three of the five. And I agree, like there's something grounding in saying, here's what I can do, right? Like the action steps of like call the lawyer, prep for a subpoena, find a support group, like whatever that looks like. And then it's the emotional part after of like, are we allowed to talk about this with our colleagues? Am I going to be judged? Like I've called both of you in tears before because I know it's you're safe. And I want all of the people watching this video to have that option. What it's like to have the support, the emotional support of our colleagues with zero judgment. Because yes, I can call the lawyer, I can do all the things, but I can still feel really wrecked and hurt by what's happened. Yeah. And I think that's the missing piece as to why I wanted to have this conversation of like, how do we create those supports? How do we talk about it? How do we normalize that this could happen in your career? Not to like make it fate of like, this will happen, but if it does, what are your options? Because unfortunately, colleagues have said, I don't want to do this anymore, or I can't come back from this. I can't heal from this because there's no space for them to heal. And so I'm hopeful that spaces can be created from this conversation today.
So let's add this piece, right? Mm-hmm. Which is when we go to our program, when we go to our master's program, they put this fear on us in regards to this big five. Can we all name that and normalize it? Yes. Because they're telling us there's no space for you. You should be available. If you do your job, none of this will happen. And I'm like, I truly believe that. And I'm like, really? None of it? And
you do your job well, right?
Yes. Yeah. And what we realize is that once we're out and we're doing the clinical work, none of these things actually are something to be afraid of. Some of them, they're natural, right? A client passing away. How can you avoid that? A client getting to the point where they feel like there's no point, there's no light, whatever it is, there's nothing you can do when someone makes their mind, or when someone subpoenaed you, like any of this. It's normal because we're human. Our clients are in pain. Our clients, sometimes they're so dysregulated that they cannot see. And us therapists get dysregulated because we have that script from school. Mm-hmm. So as between us, right? Like when we call, like, are you available? Can I vent? Can you help me? Can you help me organize or sort this out? We are very lucky to have created this group.
Right.
And to talk and to vent and to normalize and to cry and to laugh. Because sometimes that's what, like, can I just laugh? Can you send me a meme? Like, I need to laugh.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So that we can unlearn aspects of our master's program.
Right.
And I want to piggyback on what both of you guys said, and I feel like a broken record with this. There's that intersectionality of profession and human. We cannot separate it. Again, we have to honor it and be mindful. It's going to happen. I am a professional, but first, after all my acronyms, I'm first Alex. I'm first human. So when something happens in my profession, I cannot dismiss my humanness.
Right.
So it will show up. Grief will show up. Sadness will show up. Fear will show up.
Yeah.
That's part of me being human. I need to create space and honor that, process that, and be able to have a safe, like we've been saying, a safe container to be able to lean on people. Because there's going to be times where this is a bunch of crap. Yes, and be mad, be mad.
Yes. Like, how could this happen to me? Yeah, all of that.
Exactly. Being that, it's okay. There's room, there's space for that in the field. The thing is that I want to bring back what both of you guys have said. We've been told, conditioned, that if we do it well, and I loved how you did the bunny ears. If we do it well, this will. If we do, if we do it well, okay. If we do it well, but you know what? People people are get angry, people get offended, people don't get dysregulated, and their only way to get back at someone who called them out is to retaliate. And one of the our intention is always to help, our intention is always to support, to empower. But because you confronted someone with their trauma, or you confronted somebody with a truth that they weren't ready to hear, they're going to come at you, and the only way they can come at you is with a grievance. And when they come at you and you're like, wait a minute, that was never my intention, that was never, we understand that, and you feel betrayed, you feel you feel shame. And that's the key piece there, because I didn't do something well, and because I didn't follow protocol of doing something well, I now got grieved. And many times it has nothing to do with you as a clinician. It has to do with the client not being able to be ready to process a lot of their things. And so the only way they can come at you is through a grievance. And so then we feel our humanness kick in. And be able to process that, be able to, that's why we have liability insurance. That's why we use attorneys. That's why we work with our team. And then at the end of the day, you need to learn how to take care of yourself throughout this whole process as well.
Right. So I think, go ahead, Lilia.
I was going to say, and right, because something that we have done for quite a bit some time is that we do this, we create this space to go vent, to cry, to feel, to do all these things. And then we go, what do we learn from here? What are we going to do different? We go to that piece after we allow our space and our humanness, as Alex is saying, like, to show up. And then we go like, what do we need to change? What will I do different? And we're really good on doing that between the three of us, right? Like, okay, what is the lesson here?
Right. And yet we need to make sure people have space to do the emotional work, right? So I feel like as a logic thinker, I absolutely want to get right to what did I learn from this, and put it as far behind me as possible, because of those emotions that I still have. If I don't actually work through those emotions, they're going to continue to drive the next behavior, the next thought, the next action, right? So I think our viewers are going to be like, I envy all of you that you have the support system. How do I get that? So I'm curious what you would say to our viewers who are like, cool, you all have each other. How do I even find my soul tribe, as Alex calls it? Or how do I find someone to even like test this on, to say like, can they hold for me? Can they make this helpful instead of hurtful? Can they make sure it doesn't hurt me further with their response? Or, like sometimes we get like a flippant response from a colleague of like, well, you did do something wrong. And it's like, yes, I'm aware, but I need the space to be human. So what are your thoughts? How do they find these people in their life?
I think for us, I think we kind of are already connected. It kind of just a matter of we kind of gravitated to each other. It's like we never all three of us didn't go to school together. All three of us EMD are trained at different times in our careers. All three of us got our own training. All three of us taught. All three of us, I mean, we did things differently at different times. It's kind of like organic. And when people connect, it's like I know, Khara, I connected with you through a mutual friend, Kevin, and he connected us because of our passion with nonprofit and Medicaid. And then Liliana, we connected through another, through another colleague because of being a bilingual therapist. And it kind of all, when you sync with certain people based on what we bring to the table and how authentic and genuine you show up. When you show up authentic and genuinely and speak your truth, that gives other people their permission to speak authentic and genuinely. Obviously, at first we built rapport. And once we built rapport, it's like, you're part of my people. You're my people. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like I just like lob something at you and then be like, did you handle it? Cool. I'm going to tell you more now.
Yeah,
exactly. So we start realizing, I would say, trust your gut, number one.
Yes.
Number two, trust your gut. Number two, feel what resonates, what resonates with you in regards to how can I see this person as a professional and as a colleague, and can I show up authentic and genuinely, or do I have my reservations? Listen to that. Pay attention to that, because you need to honor yourself and show up authentically in all the relationships if you want them to show up authentically as well.
And foster the relationship, right? We are so good about, we have our professional space, but we also have our personal space, and we foster both. From happy dates to having these videos, or just like talking just because, or doing our working retreats. Like, we foster our relationship in order to show up our fullness in that. Right? So go play, go test, go find out your people. And we have different people for different needs. It cannot just be, Alex cannot just be it for everything. He can, but he cannot be it for everything. So we need other stuff. And same thing with Khara, right? So find it, trust yourself, and you have to work on it as well.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm hearing from both of you, find people that you resonate with, whether you build rapport or watch them be authentic, which gives you permission to be authentic. It also ties back into us being like models to other people, right? To like model what it's like to be authentic, or to share like this video, be like, hey, I've had 3 of the 5, I've had 5 of the 5, I've had 3 of the 5, or 2 of the 5 for you, Liliana. Go. So like, but by being able to say that out loud to whoever's going to watch this video, being like, okay, we could be a resource if they felt comfortable. Like, we can do that. We can hold space. Each of us can be a consult or whatever they need, while also encouraging them to find their people, right? So there's the professional side of it. There's the personal side of like, who can you ugly cry? Who can you call up and be like, I just need to like cry and not feel bad about that. And I've done that to both of you. So I know that that's my own measure.
Yeah, we've done it.
We have done it.
And so each person
probably has their own measure. And I just want to add, find those people, like Khara said, that you can ugly cry with, but also that you can be their cheerleader and they can be your cheerleader. I mean, when we think about, when we think about the accomplishments that we've had, it was huge. And their success, it brings a smile to your face, and it inspires you and encourages you to continue moving forward and achieve better and motivate and continue working. Get those individuals. Sometimes Khara's on top of the pyramid. Sometimes it's Liliana on top of the pyramid. Sometimes it's me on top of the pyramid. But and we've all made it on top of the pyramid together. And so what I mean by that is we both had accomplishments together, and we cheer each other on, and then we push each other. You can jump higher, you can go higher. And so get those individuals who will support you, and also be, I like to say, I use the word, bring back the souvenirs, meaning like, do you remember when we were going through this? Yeah. And how you overcame? This is nothing. And so you have who remind you, bring back the souvenirs. Remember when you went through this and you did this and you overcame that? This is nothing. You can do that. And we need those individuals who see us, who validate us and support us. And you both do it for me. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Aww. Yeah. And I feel like what you're both saying is, it's that balance of be there for the heavy, but also be there for the light, of like, okay, we can celebrate, we can push, we can say, I believe in you, and help them heal from whatever happens of these big five fears, how to heal from each of them. You know, some might feel like a little tiny drop in the bucket versus the other, you feel like you're drowning in an ocean.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, one thing that I was reflecting on as I've met both of you is I was excited to see you again. And I think that's another way people can measure if they find their people, of like, if you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see them, or put them on the calendar, or make time for them amidst workaholism, building a business, whatever. How they make you feel is a way to measure whether they're your people. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what's coming out of
it
me.
Does. Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
Viewers, I know that this probably like brought up a lot of things to the surface, even as you evaluate the big five and how you would feel just initially hearing about the big five from our video, but also how do you find the people to support you outside of like the structure and the logic of here's what you do to tackle an issue. So I want to say that this is inspiring a training that's coming out sometime this fall is my intention by sharing this in a video. To talk about here are the logistics you can do for each of these five things when they happen, but then here's also a space to normalize it and then encourage you to start cultivating a community, because I envision this being a live training where then people could be like, all right, we've all gone through this together, we've looked at the logistics, now can I connect with you peer to peer to be part of my support? That's my vision. Thoughts from either of you?
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. That's more than 100%. If we would have had this training prior to entering the field, it would have been amazing. Yeah. But we didn't. And so we had to learn on our own. And so why not learn from those individuals that have gone through it? Definitely.
Right. Yeah. And to your point, Liliana, like, how do we unlearn something from grad school? Like, we don't have to be perfect. We will make mistakes. We will have these horrible things happen, and we can grow from them. Right. It's that post-traumatic growth idea versus PTSD trauma of it. So stay tuned, viewers. We're gonna put that together and hopefully create a space where people can show up and just be like, you know what, this has happened, or I can finally talk about it when I felt like I couldn't before because of shame or judgment or embarrassment. But also still giving you those tangible tools, because you know me, I'm all about making sure you have what you need. So that training will have some resources in there too. It's not just the heartfelt conversations, it's also what should you do.
Yeah.
From that supervision place, from the mental health leadership place that we all come from. So I'm excited. I'm excited to put it together as a blending of very much heart-centered and logic. So stay tuned. Any final thoughts for our viewers today from both of you? Thank you for sharing the vulnerability of where you are with your big five fears. I appreciate that.
So when I see you, when Khara does this training, we're going to be like, how many out of the five? And we're going to high five when we do it, because we're going to celebrate and we're going to learn from each other.
Yeah. And then we're going to be like, good for you, Liliana. 2 out of 5. Go, you go.
And I'll just give high fives.
Yeah. Just be like, all right, like, let's show up and be real in the room. So I love that. Just be like, how do we find some humor in something that actually is pretty heavy to admit, of like, oh yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
For sure.
Definitely.
Well, I appreciate you both. Thank you for starting this conversation, knowing that it's part one of probably multiple conversations that are going to happen now that we've said, here are the big five, what showed up. So I really appreciate you both being willing to have the conversation. Thank you again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Viewers, stay tuned for more videos. You know there's more coming from us. So if you have any ideas of what you want us to talk about, also shoot us an email. I might make that a thing so we can put more videos out of what you're thinking about. So I'll put a link for that as well. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.